So let me start with UN Women's strong commitment to stand with every woman and girl whose life has been affected by violence in Sudan, in Ukraine, in Palestine, in Israel, and in women's homes all around the world, and of course in Afghanistan. It's now 4 years since the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. In the years since, dozens of decrees have continued to severely limit Afghan women and girls' rights, freedoms, and their dignity. These restrictions are not temporary, not one has been reversed. It is the most severe women's rights crisis in the world, and it's being normalised. Our latest data from our regular door-to-door surveys shows that despite systemic and continuous limitations on their lives, 40% of Afghan women actually still imagine a future where change and equality are possible. This hope is a lifeline and it's a political strategy. This is a personal act of resilience and resistance, even as 75% of more than 2,000 women we interviewed described their mental health as poor or very poor. As Afghan women hold fiercely to this hope, the introduction last year of the so-called morality law was a defining turning point in Afghanistan, crystallising the systematic erasure of women from public life. It codified long-held social norms existing for generations in some parts of the country into a rigid system of control, and it's already reshaping daily life. Our analysis shows family and community members and even some businesses are now policing women's behaviour themselves, driven by social pressure and fear of Taliban reprisals. This is how normalisation works. It's woven into the fabric of everyday life. Although Afghanistan's security incidents have remained low, the tragedy is that women's security has not. Women continue to feel and often are unsafe in public places and in their families and are unable to reap the benefits of an increase in the overall security situation since the takeover. When it comes to education and employment, women and girls are still barred from high schools, universities, and most jobs, devastating a generation of young Afghan women. Earlier this year, UN Women found that nearly 80% of young Afghan women are not in education, employment, or training, compared to 20% of men. Exclusion harms women, and it also harms their families, communities, and the country as a whole. Women continue to be systematically excluded from political and public life. The continued social and economic exclusion of women is projected to cost Afghanistan an estimated $920 million between 2024 and 26. 4 years into the takeover, the de facto cabinet remains entirely composed of men, a pattern that is mirrored at the subnational level. Some women have engaged informally with local and national de facto authorities to raise concerns about their communities and organisations. But there's no institutional mechanisms for women to have a say in decisions affecting their lives. In 2021, the Taliban introduced a decree enshrining women's rights to inheritance and banning forced marriages. This is a narrow foothold to build on. However, sadly, many women and men we consulted were unaware of the decree, and most felt the decree had not changed society's long-held practices. The return of Afghan women and girls from Iran and Pakistan is further deepening the women's rights crisis in Afghanistan. Already this year, more than 1.7 million Afghans have returned, many forcibly. Women and girls represent 1/3 of returnees from Iran so far, and half from Pakistan. Many return to no home, no income, and no access to education or healthcare, arriving in communities already stretched to breaking point by the economic crisis and climate shocks, and where their choices and freedoms are restricted. They urgently need both humanitarian assistance and long-term support to rebuild their lives. And they can only access this support through women humanitarians, as this is a context where they cannot interact with men aid workers. Since 2021, women-led organisations have been on the front lines in Afghanistan, delivering services such as healthcare, psychosocial support and protection from violence, and they continue to do so. But across civil society organisers surveyed by the UN in March this year, half of all women staff had already lost their jobs due to funding cuts. More than 1/3 of organisations reported that if the current situation continues, their ability to reach women and girls would be severely reduced, scaled down or shut down. No doubt, Afghan women and girls are bearing the brunt of global aid cuts in the country. Despite this very difficult picture, Afghan women are still resisting. Afghan women continue to find ways to operate in this environment, negotiating carefully within the margins to be able to run their businesses, find ways to educate themselves, help others access support, and raise their voices in important international meetings. Many are able to do this because of donor funds to support them, funds which are reducing. But many still imagine a different future. If we ignore the tightening strictures on Afghan women and girls, we send a message that this is normal and that the rights of women and girls everywhere are disposable or irrelevant. We cannot accept the denial of their rights as the new normal. We must keep investing in their NGOs, their businesses, and their voice in international dialogues. We must stand up for all women and girls in Afghanistan. Thank you very much.
Open for floor. Edie, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ferguson. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, welcome and thank you for doing the briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. During your time in Afghanistan, have you had the opportunity to meet with any Taliban officials and make the case you've just made to us to them? Or are they refusing to meet with anyone from UN Women?
I have met with a Taliban official actually just yesterday, and we continue to meet with Taliban officials both at national and subnational level. We have to meet with Taliban officials because we need to discuss some of the barriers that may be put up that impact our work, and we really need to engage with them to change some of these barriers. And we do talk to the Taliban regularly about these things, and actually we also, the reports that we do are shared with the Taliban, and we hope that they also influence some of their own policy decisions.
Said that nothing had changed in any of the decrees and edicts that the Taliban have made since they took power. Did you get any indication that there was any possibility of any change in your discussions?
I think that that's a broad question for the UN as well. And I do not think that the restrictions will be reduced in the immediate term. I can't hear you.
How's that? Okay, better here. It's Pamela Falk. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. It's Pamela Falk, U.S. News and World Report. A follow-up on Edie's question. There was a planned protest around the world by Afghan women, but also in Kabul. How did that go, and are there repercussions on women who protest? And then just as a bit of a follow-up, how does the Taliban deal with UN agencies? Obviously, you're speaking with them. Do they allow information into women? They clearly did not allow any UNICEF schools or anything like that. What are they allowing and what aren't they? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that they are allowing Afghan women, there is a recognition that returnees who are women and girls need women to be there to meet them and to help them access services. So this is one area that is an opening for women and girls in the country, and for us to continue to support the really important work that women humanitarians are doing, especially at this moment where there is an increase in returnees. So there are other opportunities also where, including, we work a lot with women-owned businesses, small businesses often, and some larger ones, to support women to gain access to finance and markets and that sort of thing. So there are still opportunities to provide support to women and also women-led organisations.
Please.
Oh, yeah, there it goes. I can hear it. Any repercussions on Afghan women who protest that you know about?
I'm not sure of the answer to that question. So I will find out and get back to you.
Can you hear me? This is Dulcie Lineback from Pass Blue. I'm just a little confused because you say that women can't work, but then are you talking about entrepreneurs can actually keep businesses going? Okay, and what's an example of an entrepreneur, a typical entrepreneur in Afghanistan? And then you said some women can run large businesses. So what are you referring to? Thanks.
So in their world of work, many jobs are not accessible for women to do anymore. There are certain bans in different sectors, but there are other sectors where women can still work. For example, women can be teachers of girls who are, up to grade 6. There are still women midwives, and there are other, various sectors where women can work. So the kinds of businesses that we provide support to are often small businesses, so women-owned livelihood businesses where they may work in their own homes. But we've also worked, for example, in Bamayan, where there's a women's market, and many women own businesses and they gather together and run a market, and we've been able to provide solar power so that there's energy in that market. And have worked with them to access other markets for their goods. There is a wonderful women-owned business that makes reusable sanitary pads, and they employ, I think, 50 women, and they are a successful business, and there are other opportunities to support growing those kinds of businesses. I hope that explains it. It's not, often in Afghanistan, there is not one size fits all. The situation changes from state to state and from sector to sector as well.
I mean, so how do the Taliban justify allowing some women to work in some ways and not in others?
I can't really explain the Taliban's mindset, But I think some of the businesses that are allowed to operate are perhaps seen more as a sector that may be appropriate to women's roles, for example.
Please, Iftikhar, you can go ahead. I think we missed Iftikhar. Maybe I'm going to try with Abdul Hamid now, and I will go back to you, Iftikhar. Abdul Hamid, please.
Can you please explain to me how do you communicate with Afghani women? Do you visit them? Do they come to you? How you collect your information about Afghan women? Which language you use when you encounter Afghan women? How do they communicate their complaints to you as well? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So we have a large staff cohort of women Afghans, and of course they have language skills, and we also have men Afghans, and they also obviously have language skills. So there are, that's one really important way, and that's in Afghanistan. We really rely on our Afghan colleagues to be able to be a bridge language-wise. But there are also a number of Afghan women who speak English, which is my language, and I am able to speak to a number of Afghan women myself. But certainly our Afghan staff are exceptionally important. And the surveys that we do across the country, we have a range of enumerators who speak all the different languages in Afghanistan and are trained to collect the information and communicate. So we also work, in fact, a big part of our work is supporting women-led organisations, and we provide funds to more than 200 women CSOs across the country. And they also, work in their own communities, in their own languages and their own culture, navigating the different ways to provide services and talk to other women.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
This is Iftikhar Ali from Associated Press of Pakistan. The recent UNAMA report describes the sad situation of the women and girls in Afghanistan and calls for urgent action before this situation gets normalized. What kind of action are you looking for?
So in UN Women, our key way of working is to support Afghan women have a voice at a range of different decision-making tables, and that is still possible in different ways. So what we require is funding for those women-led organisations, because they're an important way of holding the space for women across the country to demonstrate leadership and to provide services that are much needed to the populations that they work in. So we urgently need more funds to provide that kind of support to women. And it's a number of these women are also providing this humanitarian support for returnees. And again, we need funds to be able to provide that to them so that these women can enter the country safely and settle safely.
Do we have any further questions here on the floor? If not, I just would like to thank our guests again today. Susan Ferguson, the UN Special Representative for Afghanistan, who was briefing us from Kabul today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone in the audience. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.